During the Jin dynasty, there lived a scholar named Zhang Zi, a native of Yizhou. Having lost both parents in his childhood, he resided in Hongwu. Zhang was a solemn and dignified man. Initially, he was merely a quiet scholar who enjoys solitude. Apart from his 2 daily meals taken at the neighboring house to the east, he spent all his remaining time alone in his room, immersed in books. One day, a well-meaning neighbor came to him and said, "You live all by yourself. Aren't you afraid of female ghosts or fox spirits paying you a visit?" Upon hearing this, Zhang laughed heartily and replied, "What is there for a grown man to fear? If a male visitor comes, I have my strength. If a female comes, I'll simply open the door and invite her to stay." Another neighbor, upon hearing about this, hatched a plan. The very next night, he arranged for a young woman to knock on Zhang's door. "Who is it?" Zhang asked. The woman answered, "A ghost." No sooner had she spoken than Zhang was instantly terrified, his teeth chattering. He hid under his quilt, not daring to move a muscle. Early the next morning, the neighbor came over again and said loudly to Zhang, "Why didn't you open the door and let that girl stay last night?" Realizing it had all been a prank, Zhang understood immediately. Thus, he gave up any thought of packing and leaving, continuing to live there peacefully as before. Some time later, on another night, a woman suddenly came knocking at his door again. This time, thinking it was another joke from his friends, Zhang invited her in without a second thought. Looking up, Zhang saw a woman of breathtaking beauty. She replied, "My name is Lian Xiang. I am a courtesan from West Street." The area where Zhang lived was filled with brothels, so he had no reason to doubt her story. He promptly extinguished the lamp and led Lian Xiang to bed. From then on, Lian Xiang would visit him under cover of darkness every few days. During the day, both were occupied with their own affairs, but when the dark, moonless nights fell, their passions would ignite like clouds parting to reveal the sun. Their encounters grew increasingly frequent and prolonged over time. One evening, as Zhang lay lounging on his bed, lost in thought and feeling quite content, a sudden knock came at his door. Thinking it was Lian Xiang, he leapt up and rushed to open it. Unexpectedly, the visitor was not Lian Xiang, but a girl of 15 or 16, graceful and charming, her movements ethereal and alluring. Zhang immediately recalled the fox spirits often mentioned by the elders. Fear gripped him once more. Seeing his reaction, the girl quickly explained, "My surname is Li. I am the daughter of a respectable family. I admire your noble character and refined tastes, and I hope to win your affection." Hearing Miss Li's praise, he welcomed her with a smile and invited her inside. Miss Li entered while speaking. "For the sake of this destined connection, I give myself to you, heart and soul. But I wonder, are there any other women in your life?" Zhang, seeing no reason to hide it, told her candidly, "There is a courtesan named Lian Xiang nearby, but she doesn't visit often." Upon hearing this, Miss Li quickly said, "I am different from those women from the brothels. You must keep my existence a secret. From now on, when she comes, I shall leave. When she leaves, I shall come." Seeing the daybreak, Miss Li grew anxious to leave. Before departing, she gave Zhang an embroidered shoe. The following night, finding his room lonely and cold, Zhang took out the embroidered shoe to look at it. To his astonishment, the moment he touched it, Miss Li instantly appeared outside his door and began knocking. She visited several more times in this manner. When questioned, she only said it was a coincidence. Though puzzled, Zhang didn't press the matter further. One night, Lian Xiang entered and asked in surprise, "Zhang, why do you look so listless and worn out?" Zhang immediately turned to leave, making an appointment to return in 10 days. After Lian Xiang's departure, Miss Li visited every single night without fail. One night, Miss Li asked why Lian Xiang hadn't come for several days. She realized that this was the 9th night. An idea struck her. She decided to hide outside the following night to see what Lian Xiang looked like. On the 10th night, when Lian Xiang entered, she asked again in surprise, It's been 10 days, why do you still look so exhausted? Lian Xiang had originally decided on a 10-day separation because she thought Zhang's fatigue was her fault. She also concluded that Zhang's condition was a symptom of encountering a ghost. The next night, when Miss Li entered Zhang's room, she exclaimed immediately, "I said it was impossible for a mortal woman to be so stunningly beautiful. Lian Xiang is indeed a fox spirit." Zhang thought Miss Li was jealous of Lian Xiang and responded dismissively. However, the following night, when Lian Xiang visited, Zhang said teasingly, "Someone told me you're a fox spirit." That night, Miss Li had barely entered and spoken a few words, and she heard a noise outside. She immediately turned and ran out. Soon after, Lian Xiang entered from outside, pointing at Zhang and crying, "You are doomed." That Miss Li is truly a female ghost. With your constitution, if you continue staying with her, you're not far from the coffin. Tomorrow I will bring medicine to cure you within 10 days. But during these 10 days, you must stay with me. I need to ensure you recover. The next night, Lian Xiang indeed arrived with medicine. After taking it, Zhang felt a sudden clarity and vitality throughout his body. His spirit rejuvenated. Lian Xiang stayed by his side for 10 consecutive days. Seeing this, Lian Xiang felt reassured and prepared to leave. Before departing, she instructed, "You must sever ties with Miss Li." As soon as Lian Xiang left, he took out the embroidered shoe and fondled it. Instantly, Miss Li appeared outside. Upon entering, her face was full of resentment. "If you don't break off with her, I will never come again." With these words, she began to cry. Zhang quickly comforted her until she was cheerful again. The next night, Lian Xiang visited again. While chatting with her, Zhang bluntly mentioned that Miss Li had come. This enraged Lian Xiang. Moreover, if Zhang were to die, she would be unable to clear her name. She immediately decided to come back to check on him. After 100 days, Zhang was terribly upset but couldn't persuade her to stay. In the days that followed, for over 2 months, Miss Li visited Zhang's room every night without fail. Zhang visibly wasted away, becoming frail and ill, able to consume only thin gruel. Finally reaching this point, Zhang began to suspect Miss Li. When he awoke, Miss Li had already vanished. From then on, she never came again. In the following days, the emaciated Zhang lay in his empty room, unable to stop thinking of Lian Xiang and all her kindness. On the 100th night, Lian Xiang slowly entered the room and said, "You country bumpkin, didn't I tell you so? It's a pity you are now beyond cure. There's no saving you. I came today to bid you farewell, to prove it wasn't jealousy on my part. There's something under my pillow. Please take it out and destroy it from me." Lian Xiang went to the bed and pulled out an embroidered shoe from under the pillow. She took it to the lamplight, turning it over and over in her hands. At that moment, Miss Li suddenly entered the room. Catching sight of Lian Xiang, she turned to flee, but Lian Xiang was quicker, blocking her exit. Seeing this, Miss Li fell to her knees, weeping uncontrollably. Lian Xiang helped her up and asked about her background. As the two women heatedly discussed this, Zhang, lying nearby, was stunned. Only now did he realize that his beloved women were truly a ghost and a fox spirit. Fortunately, given his close relationship with them, he felt little fear. Besides, he was already halfway to the netherworld. All he could do was weep bitterly. It was only when Zhang cried out that the two women remembered he was near death. Yet, they still couldn't resist bantering. Miss Li asked if there was any way to cure Zhang. Lian Xiang said, "If I make him strong and healthy again, I'm afraid you, Vinegar Lady, will be even more jealous." Hearing this, Miss Li immediately straightened her clothes and declared, "If you can restore Zhang to health, I will certainly never let him fall gravely ill again." With that, Lian Xiang produced a small pouch from her waist, saying, "I anticipated this day might come. After we parted, I traveled everywhere gathering herbs. It took over 3 months to prepare this medicine, but to untie the bell, one must seek the one who tied it. We still need something from you." Miss Li urgently asked what was needed. Lian Xiang replied, I will put a pill in his mouth. I need you to put your mouth to his and transfer a little saliva into his." After one transfer, Lian Xiang placed another pill in Zhang's mouth and herself breathed a stream of energy directly into him through a mouth-to-mouth transfer. Immediately, a fiery heat surged in Zhang's Danshan core, and his spirit revived instantly. Soon, the sky began to brighten, and the crowing of roosters could be heard. Though reluctant, Miss Li had no choice but to leave. Looking back with every step, Lian Xiang remained in the room. Since Zhang was convalescing and couldn't go to his neighbors for meals, she worried the neighbor might come looking for him. So, she locked the main door from the outside, pretending Zhang had returned to his hometown, and guarded him day and night. Miss Li also visited every night without fail, treating Lian Xiang like her own elder sister. Over time, Lian Xiang couldn't help but grow fond of Miss Li. For 3 months, Lian Xiang cared for Zhang from day until dark, and then Miss Li would come at night. The affection among the three grew. After 3 months, Zhang had fully recovered from his serious illness. Now, Miss Li, worried about her heavy yin energy, didn't dare visit Zhang's room for several days. If she came occasionally, it was only for a brief look before leaving. Whenever Lian Xiang asked her to stay, she refused vehemently. But one day, as Miss Li was turning to leave, Zhang rushed out, carried her back inside, and placed her on the bed. Unable to break free, Miss Li lay beside Zhang fully clothed. Miss Li pretended to be asleep and refused to make a sound. Zhang could only give up and go to sleep. When he woke in the morning, Miss Li was already gone. Strangely, for the next 10 days or so, Miss Li never visited again. Zhang, missing her intensely, often took out the embroidered shoe to fiddle with. But no matter how much he handled it, Miss Li still did not appear. Helpless, both Zhang and Lian Xiang shed tears of longing. Or had Miss Li gone? This matter actually relates to a local wealthy family named Zhang. The Zhang family had a daughter who had died. The girl suddenly came back to life, however. Her speech and behavior seemed like those of a different person. Miss Li accidentally caught sight of her reflection in a mirror. Staring at the unfamiliar face, she suddenly realized she had been revived in another's body. Miss Li burst into tears. The reason was none other than the unappealing appearance of the Zhang daughter. Wailing, she cried. Miss Li suddenly felt an itch all over her body. Scratching and scratching, she shed an entire layer of skin. Looking in the mirror again, she was pleasantly surprised to discover that her face and figure had completely transformed back to her previous appearance. When Lian Xiang and Zhang heard that the deceased daughter of Prefect Li had possessed the Zhang family's daughter, they immediately longed to propose marriage to the Zhang family and bring Miss Li back. However, their social statuses were vastly different. Weeping, Zhang examined her carefully and, confirming it was indeed Miss Li, couldn't hold back his own tears. He immediately knelt down and kowtowed to the Zhang family. Old Lady Zhang, witnessing this scene, was deeply moved and proposed that the girl back to his hometown. On their wedding night, Lian Xiang helped Miss Li into the bridal chamber. When the veil was lifted, the three were as joyful as in the old days. But shortly after the birth, she suddenly fell seriously ill, growing weaker by the day. Miss Li and Zhang took turns fetching doctors. She would be Nidan. Definitely take Hua to Lian Xiang's grave, telling him firmly and clearly, "You have a magnificent mother." 14 years passed in the blink of an eye. Zhang worked hard and passed the provincial. Hearing this, Miss Li hurriedly had the maid invite them in. Who could have predicted that upon seeing the old woman's daughter, Miss Li would be utterly astonished, exclaiming, blurting out, "It's Sister Lian Xiang reincarnated." With this cry, Miss Li couldn't contain her joy and her tears. Hua, hearing the news, rushed over. Seeing the girl, he too was amazed. She and Hua took turns asking questions. The first question was naturally, soon, it was the cold food festival again. Zhang brought the whole family to the gravesite. Zhang, following Miss Li's words, had her previous grave excavated. After retrieving her bones, he buried them together with Lian Xiang's.